Policy disagreements aside, bribery and extortion are crimes, and they most certainly merit removal from office. Dyze in your house. Exclusively on Least Coast Radio. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are that of my own and are not of my employer.
Nobody likes me. Nobody likes me. But that's okay, cause I don't like y'all anyway. And I don't like y'all anyway.
We have until November of 2020 to get our act together as a country, as a nation, to correct this injustice. And the biggest injustice in the world was allowing a foreign power to install a criminal into the White House and turn an administration into a fascist crime syndicate. That must be corrected. And we only have there's only one more election we have to correct it, or this whole thing is over.
If you don't know what Staten Island is, it's like New York's abortion that lived.
I never met any of the founding fathers, but I'm sure if they were listening to Least Coast Radio right now and brand new episodes of Dyze in Your House, they would agree with the sentiment. And you can follow us on Twitter at Least Coast Radio. Get us on Patreon at Least Coast Radio. Vote. Blue Wave 2020. Let's make it happen. Least Coast Radio for the least heard voices. Every weekend. We here on Least Coast Radio are trying to fight the rising tide of fascism.
The noun fascism is usually defined as a governmental system led by a dictator having complete power, forcibly suppressing opposition and criticism, regimenting all industry, commerce, etc., and emphasizing an aggressive nationalism and often racism.
Yeah, we don't want any of that in America. So we gotta stop it. We gotta put out the fire now. Staten Island was no joke. As liberals, not even as liberals, as Americans, as patriots, as people that like democracy. The only thing we can do right now to fix our country is use our weapons. And our weapons are our voices, our handmade signs, and social media. Get the message out there. Voting. Voting is key. Elections have consequences.
If you don't know what Staten Island is, it's like New York's abortion that lived.
Representing Staten Island. Staten Island was no joke.
Hey, yo. Who's in the house? Dyze in your house. What is the word, peeps? What goes on? It is the weekend. It is Least Coast Radio. I am Jay Parks, and we are back here with a brand new episode of Dyze in your house. What is this you stumbled upon, you may ask yourself? Well, I'm going to share it with you. It's a vehicle we use to stress the importance of voting. People like you and me and young people who aren't old white men need to start getting out there and voting and affecting the way this country operates. Because at the end of the day, it's our country. It is the country for all Americans. Poor, rich, women, men, colored, white, not from America, from America. We're all here now, and we're here to make this better. We're not here to go back to 1920s policies. We're not here thinking about a time where the country used to be good. You know, at a time where people didn't have the equal rights that they have now. Even though we're not there yet. We're not at the finish line as a country in terms of equal rights. We're not where these people want to take us back to. And these people are 2019, 2020 Republicans. Republicans circa this generation have no interest in the well-being of the regular American person, the constituent, as much as they care about the American elected official themselves. So what we do here is we try to... I'm not here trying to tell people with red hats on how to live their life. I'm just saying that there's 45% of the country that didn't vote. And that's a huge problem in America. And if we could get those people out and voting, you can really get a general pulse of where this country is. Because I don't think this country is what Trump and the rising fascist regime represent. And if you guys don't know what fascism is, like, we're in the early stages of it. And instead of me explaining it, hey Google, what is fascism?
According to Wikipedia, fascism is a form of far-right, authoritarian ultranationalism characterized by dictatorial power, forcible suppression of opposition, and strong regimentation of society and of the economy, which came to prominence in early 20th century Europe.
Yeah, so that I did not ask for a list of American values there. I asked for what fascism is. And that's what fascism is. And that's not democracy. That's not what we have here in America. Constitutional republic, whatever you want to call it. That is not what we have here in America. In America, we have free and fair elections. And what happened in 2016 was not really a fair election. I mean, let's just... When you have a hostile foreign power making attempts and succeeding to hack into servers, hack people's emails, disseminate those emails over a period of time, and help install a fascist crime syndicate into 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, you start to say to yourself, okay, what can we do to make that not happen again? What can we do to make sure Americans decide elections? Well, we could take up all these election security bills that the House of Representatives passed, but unfortunately, the Senate, which is controlled by Republicans, chooses to ignore these election security bills. Okay, so we can do what we've been doing. We can try to, tell people we gotta rock the vote. We gotta exhaust the vote. That's what we gotta do. We have to overwhelm the vote. We have to leave no margin for error. So, like, people might get annoyed with me every day, like in real life, when I talk about, and by the way, the views and opinions expressed on this podcast are that of my own, and not that of my employer. I just want to get that out there. My employer's good people, and they have nothing to do with the ramblings and rants and raves of J Porks on Dyze in Your House, exclusively on Least Coast Radio. Least Coast Radio for the least heard voices. So in real life, like if you catch, and we're going to talk about, I had a real life incident where somebody wanted to discuss policy with me, or maybe didn't want to discuss policy with me, and I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes, a short time from now. I just want to touch on this Roger Stone trial kicking off. So while we're getting out there and making I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to mention voting. Like this past week, on Tuesday, there was an election. For a lot of places around the country had elections. State house races, civil council, whatever the case may be, judges. There were things up. Here in New York City, it was public advocate. That was the big thing. And we had, the main two were Jumaane Williams was running against Joe Borelli. Now, Joe Borelli's the Republican. He's from Staten Island. He was a political science teacher at the College of Staten Island. And now he's like assemblyman or whatever, and he was running for public advocate. And he lost to Jumaane Williams. Thanks to, well, at least me, going out and voting. I did my part. We also have ranked choice voting in New York City now, which is instead of, picking one candidate, you'll get to rank them 1 through however many there are. I think it might be 1 through 4. But you get to rank them now. Now that's a longer, explaining how that works is a longer podcast for another day. I just want to point out that there has been changes made thanks to voting. People went out and voted, and now we affected the way we vote. So now you will get to pick in order. So it's none of this, you know, my person or no person. That is not how a democracy works. And for all you independent people, libertarians, if you guys want to have that actual third party, then you need to get some people elected into Congress, and you need to have a little caucus. Like, let's just say the House of Representatives had 4 or 5 people who were libertarian. They identified as libertarian. Not independent who leans that way. I'm talking about libertarian. You could have a little caucus. You have a little 5 people. Then you say, okay, who wants a caucus with us? Can we get a couple independents? Can we get a little indies in here? And then you'd have a thing. But you can't just wait till an election, every time an election comes around, to try to decide, I don't like those people. Well, you had every opportunity to build. You had we all have every opportunity in this country to support people from grassroots from day one and make sure they get into office. Run for something. Stand for something, or you fall for anything. So, like, I understand that people I support, like, every politician I stand for on my podcast, let's not necessarily say that they're all, you know, they might have some flaws. But you know what? Just because somebody has one flaw, it's like a relationship. Like, you're not just going to leave somebody based on one thing. Unless, you know, I mean, depends on what that one thing is, but that one thing would need to be something really toxic. Anyhow, I'm getting off the beaten path here. The point is, all of us, for you to say your vote doesn't matter, you're already letting these people who are already in power, who you claim are controlling your vote, you're letting them have another win. So don't do that. Don't give anybody an easy win on you. Don't let anybody dunk on you. Make them take the jump shot. Make them harness some skill. That's a good analogy. Look at me, sports. Like, don't, if you think you're, you know, like, when people say, oh, the powerful, they have control and they're not going to give it up, like, okay, but don't let them dunk on you. Like Shaq, send him to the free throw line, bro. Hack him, foul him, make him take shots. Don't let these people drive the lane. You don't have to let people just, you know, in life you win and you lose, but you don't have to let people beat you. You know what I'm saying? And that's what you're doing by saying your vote doesn't count, even if in your mind you really believe that. Saying that out loud is spreading misinformation to other people, and it may be affecting the way other people think about that. People might hear you say that, and people might think that you're a smart person, even though saying that proves otherwise. And you might influence another mind, and that's why I come on my podcast every week, and I try to let you know that this voting thing is serious, and we need to take it seriously, and we need to get out there and vote. And here's why. I always mention a hostile foreign power installed a fascist crime syndicate into 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Well, the link between that country's outlet to do the hacking, see, Russia is the hostile foreign power. Vladimir Putin used WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks poses as a, you know, freedom of the press beacon when they were actually involved in hacking into emails for one political party, one political candidate. It's not like WikiLeaks hacked into Trump's emails too and sent them out and disseminated them to everybody. And disseminated them to everybody like in equal, fair form. That would be what journalism is, equal. But it wasn't that. It was tipping the scales towards Trump by letting out John Podesta's emails and releasing selected Hillary Clinton emails that actually weren't incriminating at all, but, you know, they were just stupid, you know, campaign talk, whatever, talking about strategies and stuff. You release that shit. So, the whole Mueller report, which you may have heard a lot about, the whole Russia thing that you may have thought was nothing, is actually something. Because Russia is behind WikiLeaks hacking into the DNC server, into Hillary Clinton's emails, into John Podesta's emails. And through the Mueller report, since they couldn't actually sit down with Trump, they couldn't catch him in lies, so they asked, and they basically made it seem like, well, the campaign was receptive to this help, but there was no official person in the campaign who actually went out and sought it personally, with an official title. But the outlet they had to WikiLeaks, the cord, was Roger Stone, who actually wasn't working for the campaign. He's an informal advisor to Trump. And you may have remembered Roger Stone a couple of months ago when he was first, indicted on these charges, and he was Instagramming stuff about the judge, like in the crosshairs or something, and like he had to have a gag order put on him so he couldn't tweet, and he couldn't say anything, he couldn't make any public statements, like, because they thought Roger Stone was going to turn this into a circus, which is what he's trying to do. But Roger Stone has been a longtime political advisor of Trump. He used to lobby for him in Washington. Roger Stone worked with Paul Manafort. They had a lobbying firm together in the 80s and in the 90s, where they used to represent brutal foreign dictators. That's what they did. And Paul Manafort ran Trump's campaign. He was Trump's campaign chairman. And he is serving, I believe, over 10 years in prison as we speak for bank fraud and stuff he did. Bank fraud and all these illegal election activities that took place when he was the campaign manager for a guy in Ukraine, a pro-Russia Ukrainian presidential candidate. So that's the thing. I know it gets a little difficult, but long story short on Ukraine is that they used to be the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union's no more, but Russia wants Ukraine to be Russia, and Ukraine is like, yo, we're Ukraine, and they're like, no, you're Russia. So they annexed Crimea. They took a piece of Ukraine. They said, we're taking this. And what America did was kick them out of the G8, which is this summit of world leaders. So now it's called the G7. And Trump wants to get Russia back into the G7, making it the G8 again. And that is enough reason for Putin to want to install him into 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. But if you look at the policies, all of the policies that would hamper Russia as a nation have been peeled back and removed. All the sanctions, stuff like that, they're not being punished for any of this. Even though it's been proven by all the intelligence communities that Russia hacked our election. They did not change votes at the ballot box this time, but they hacked voter rolls. What does that mean? They got information. They knew if you were a Democrat or Republican. They knew where you lived. And in these key swing states, they used all the powers at hand. Facebook ads, bots on Twitter, fake pretend news stories. Like, this was a coordinated effort by the Russian government, and all they needed was WikiLeaks emails, and they needed access to the Trump campaign to get this information into the Trump campaign. And the access point was Roger Stone, and his trial started this week. And I wish, and I hate to do the hashtag I'm old enough to remember, but I'm old enough to remember Court TV and the OJ trial, and you were able to watch that on television, and then endless highlights as if it was SportsCenter. It was crazy. It was a wild time, 1994, man. OJ trial. The Rangers win the Stanley Cup. The Knicks went to the finals. And we're up 3-2. But John Starks. Anyway. So, like, there's only a few reporters in the courtrooms that I follow. Like, Glenn Kirshner's in there. He's on MSNBC all the time. And he was saying that... I basically heard him on TV this morning saying that it's been clearly established because the lawyer representing the prosecution worked on the Mueller team, so he knows everything already. He knows all of how this all... So this is basically a live-action Mueller report, and basically, there's no way Roger Stone doesn't go to jail for this. But maybe that's what he wants. Maybe he wants to go to jail. Because he's just... If there's a shit... It's not like there's a shitstorm that surrounds Roger Stone because, you know, woe is him. No. He kicks up the shit. He brings the shit with him. He likes Stone. He likes that. And you need no further evidence than his former business partner, who is still basically his business partner, is in jail. Paul Manafort is in prison for a long time. And he's looking for a pardon. And remember, Paul Manafort was working for a pro-Putin Ukrainian presidential candidate. And then you think about what the impeachment is about. Trump called Ukraine and was like, yo, investigate the Bidens. Investigate the Clintons. And they're like, you know we're not Russia, right? Also, like, we need, we as America, we have military aid. Military money has come out of your paycheck to pay for military aid that was already earmarked to go. $700 million was earmarked to go to Ukraine already. You voted for the people that voted to make that happen, that allocated that money, and they also have already taken that money out of your paycheck to put into the military budget. And Trump's on the phone with this guy like, yeah, well, if you investigate Joe Biden, we'll give you this money. Like, no, that's extortion. And that merits removal. Even if everything else didn't exist. Even if it wasn't the xenophobia. Even if it wasn't the racism, the white nationalism, the Ku Klux Klan rallies that he holds, the red hats. Even if it wasn't all that. Even if it wasn't everything policy-wise, that in itself is merit for removal. And if you think it's stupid, then you are not an educated person. I'm sorry. Then you need to go read a book. As my uncle said, I see my Uncle Ricky my Uncle Hector on Facebook. And I've taken a step back from Facebook too. I left that Staten Island politics group, and I'm only going to use Facebook to share the link to my podcast every week. And, you can share, you can tag me in a meme or whatever. Like, if it's something that doesn't have to do with politics, I'm cool. But, like, Facebook, in terms of a social network platform, it's not where it's at anymore. And it just makes me stressed out. But Facebook came alive today. Not today, on Tuesday. Let me tell you a story. This is a story all about how my life got threatened on the bus. I'm not joking. There is no hyperbole. I will not exaggerate. I have not exaggerated this story. And if any of my work friends have found my podcast and are listening right now, they've probably heard me workshopping this at work. So I'm sorry that you've heard this story already. But I have listeners who just read the tweets, and they've probably been waiting for me to tell the story. So I'm gonna. So Tuesday was election day. I'm on my way to my polling place. I usually go in the morning, but because my work schedule got changed after I left work, I got a text moving my 10 to 7 to a 6 to 3, whatever. That was cool. I was down with that. I like the mornings anyway. So when that happened, when I got that text on, when I found out that was changing, I knew that I couldn't go vote in the morning. I had to be at work at 6. But I get off at 3. That's plenty of time to go vote. So I got on the train. I took a different route home. I got on the train. And I got off at the Eltingville train station. Now, I know that a lot of people aren't from Staten Island. But I'm just, for those of you who know Staten Island, I'm just telling you, I'm just giving you the story. So I get off at the LT1 train station, and I get on the S59. And that's going to take me to where I transfer to the other bus to get to my polling place. I know it sounds hard. It's really not. If there was a sidewalk, I'd be able to walk, but there's not. It's not like that long of a trip just because I'm transferring a bunch of times. So I'm on the 59, and I have my headphones in. Now, this is a key part of the story. When you have your headphones in, if I go up, I like to talk to strangers at times. Today was not one of those days. I had just worked a 6 to 3. I was tired. I wanted to go home. I wanted to have my pizza, and I wanted to go to sleep. That's what I wanted to do. So first I had to go vote, but I was on the bus, and I had my headphones in. Now the only time I would talk to somebody who has their headphones in is if I needed directions, or like, did I miss my stop, did the bus come, something innocuous like that. I would never, you know, ask someone, hey, what are you listening to, or something like that. Like, that's like if someone's reading, and hey, what are you reading? Like, that's so obnoxious and rude, and something you shouldn't do. So anyway, I have my headphones in. So this guy, this older gentleman, I want to say he's between the ages of 58 and 65. A little short, bald guy, but he's like, you know, stocky, whatever, out of shape. And he says, I see him talking to me. So I remove one earbud. And I said, what happened? Say that again? He said, I see you got the Elizabeth Warren pin on your book bag. Because I have a Dream Big, Fight Hard pin on my book bag. I got it at the Elizabeth Warren rally. And if anybody from the Elizabeth Warren team wants to send me more pins, I'm down. I like pins. I like swag. So I said, yeah, I do. Like, I do have the Elizabeth Warren. And he says, let me ask you something, if you don't mind me asking. Do you know anything about Elizabeth Warren? Now, I said, yes, I do. Though the words I said were, yes, I do. In my thoughts, I'm thinking, why would I put a damn pin on my book bag if I didn't know what it was representing? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, but I said, yeah, I do. Confidently. Because here's what I'm thinking. This guy asked me if I know anything about Elizabeth Warren. We are about to have a political conversation, and I am about to school this guy on the bus. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to let him ask his questions, and then I'm going to get him. And we have an audience here. And this is going to be like a Facebook comment thread come to life. And I was so excited because I'm not a guy that, you know, won't do that in real life. You know what I mean? Like, I'll have any conversation I have on Facebook, I will have with you in real life. That's just that's just who I am. So I said, yeah, I know about Elizabeth Warren. He says, really? You know all the history? I said, yeah, I do know everything about Elizabeth Warren. Like, it was like the Eminem battle. Like, I know everything he's about to say against me, you know? Like, it was like that. It was like the end of 8 Mile. So I was letting him go. He's like, yeah, you know the whole history, her entire background? I said, yeah, yes, I do. And then he said, you're probably a young kid. Like, obviously, he didn't get the answer he was looking for. So he said, you're probably a young kid. And I'm like, I'm 32 years old. Like, I'm flattered that people think I'm a young kid, but I'm 32 years old. He's like, you probably live at home with your parents. Which, you know, I didn't want to explain to him that technically, yes, but technically it's my house and my parents live with me. But, you know, it's semantics at that point. Yeah, okay. And he's like, all right, thanks. I got my answer. Have a nice day. And then he walks all the way back to the front of the bus. Didn't let me get a word in. So then I took out my other earbud. And I'm just leaning against the thing, and I said calmly, I said, so, I have a question. Do you think it's cool to support a traitor? Now, I obviously said this like he was over there at the front of the bus by the bus driver. But before I even finished the sentence, he started walking back towards me. And that's when his chest puffed out. And he was like, I'm not exaggerating, guy. And let me just say it again that I'm not adding to this. He said, wait a sec, excuse me. And he came over, he said, you shut your fucking mouth. I said, but I was just there. He's like, you shut up. You're messing with the wrong one. I was like, you were just acting quiet. I thought we were having a conversation. He's like, don't raise your voice at me. I asked you a question. The conversation's over. I will leave you. You are messing with the wrong one. I will leave you bleeding on this bus. I will kick the fucking shit out of you right now. On this bus. In front of people. On camera. I don't give a fuck. You're messing with the wrong one. Don't you get aggressive with me. I'm the wrong one. Now, every time I was like, but, he was threatening to beat me up and kill me. Leave me dead on the bus, bleeding. So, as an adult who has a job, a career, I took the L in that situation, and I didn't, you know, beat the fuck out of this old man on the bus. Which is exactly what I should have done. Which is exactly what a past me would have done. Which is exactly what this guy wanted me to do. And yeah, I smelled like beer on his breath. He might have just came from the bar. He's definitely a guy that collects a check, you know, some pension. But like, coming out of that encounter, a couple of things. One, like, we're on a packed bus. There are two people having a political, an argument that came across as from politics. Two people are involved in the discussion. Really, one, him. And everyone else is just watching along, not caring about anything that's going on. Like, this guy literally, he wasn't just telling me that I don't know what I'm talking about. If he would have came up to me and said, listen, I don't agree with your views, we could have had a little discussion. And he might have made some decent points. Like, he didn't even tell me, like, I support Trump. He didn't say anything like that. I was just gonna say, do you think it's cool to support a traitor? And if he would have said, I don't like Trump, I would have said, alright, cool, then you don't support a traitor. That's cool. Now tell me why you don't like Elizabeth Warren. Why is he so afraid of Elizabeth Warren? I thought the whole basis of this whole Trump thing was strong, being strong. You're threatening somebody who you assumed was a young kid on the bus because they were about to herb you out in a political conversation. And I swear to you, guys, I have thought about this almost every hour of every day since this has happened. And I really, really, really want to beat that guy up. I really do. But that's not civilized society, and that's not how we're gonna win. You know how we're gonna win? Is if we do exactly what I did. Stay on that bus. Go to your polling place. Don't let that deter you. Because that, you know, there might have been, if it wasn't me, if that would have happened to somebody else and they were on their way to their polling place, they might not have gone. They might have just went right home. Not me. I still continued to my polling place. I went there, and I voted for Jumaane Williams, and I voted for ranked choice voting because I care about democracy, and nothing anybody says or does is going to deter me from voting. And that should be your attitude going into November 3rd, 2020. And going into a Democratic primary season. We got to get out there and vote. Because you know who's voting? People who threaten other people on the bus with physical violence because of their political views. Now listen, I might see somebody in a MAGA hat. I might see somebody in a MAGA shirt. On the bus. On the train. I have before. I'm on the train and I might see the Trump 2020 flag on some guy's house. I might see that. That's gonna piss me off for the rest of the day. But I'm not going to go up to these people. I'm not going to ring someone's bell and ask them a bunch of questions and threaten to fight them, to cause physical harm to them because they disagree with my political beliefs. That's just ridiculous. In what era is this? And this guy's an adult. And we live on Staten Island. This guy's not surrounded by liberals. You know what I'm saying? This guy is surrounded by Trump supporters. This guy, they won. They got it. Go you, take your win. I can't take that win away from you. You have that! And you and your boys can sit at the bar and drink and talk about a wall, you know, and all that stuff. You can do that! That's your right as Americans! And it's my right as an American to go vote. And I wanted to have a discussion with that guy. And he didn't want to have it. And that's the most disconcerting thing to me. That these people are so bloodthirsty. And he's so scared of Elizabeth Warren. What is Elizabeth Warren gonna do to that guy, personally? That guy is on the bus. That guy is not a rich guy. I'm glad he's on the bus and not driving because he was definitely wasted. That guy is not a rich person. He is on the bus. I looked at his watch. It wasn't a Rolex. Elizabeth Warren is not going to affect his paycheck. So he needs to just chill out. Maybe not drink so much. And maybe stop trying to fight kids on the bus. I say kids because he said you're a young kid, right? It was his determination that he went up to a young kid. I'm not a young kid. My back hurts, my teeth hurt, and I get a lot of headaches. I am not a kid at all. Like, I wear earplugs at concerts, fam. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I wear Jordan mids. Like, I am old, okay? I'm 32. I'm not a kid. But he thought I was, and he was gonna beat me up because I'm gonna vote for Elizabeth Warren. That shows me that this guy's scared. What if I had a Joe Biden button on? What if I had a Joe Biden pin on? Would he stop talking to me about Ukraine? Is that what he would do? Because then I just would have hit him with Manafort and Stone, and he still would have threatened to beat me up. There was no way I could have not gotten beaten up. So the point of the story is, like, I am not here for the show. And that's why I'm participating less on Facebook. I'm not here to sit in comment threads and try to school these people, because these people don't want to be schooled. These people, all these people want to do is yell at you and threaten violence because they don't have thoughts. And that's just, and again, I got a call from a lot of people. Thank you, everybody that reached out to me on Twitter. Thank you so much for responding to my tweets and giving me the words of encouragement. And I actually will say that a couple weeks ago when we were knocking on doors for Elizabeth Warren here on Staten Island, the guy that was organizing that, this guy David, he called me personally and asked me how I was doing. Like, so I appreciate everybody, you know, reaching out to me and making sure I'm okay. And like, listen, man, this is all the more reason why we need to vote Democrat. Because if we could vote Democrat and we could get rid of all this racist Republican nonsense that exists now, if we can get rid of all of that, if we could find ourselves in a place where that's no longer a thing, then we won't have to really wear the pin. And then these racists won't attack me on the bus. You know what I'm saying? Like, the sick people they are. And that's my main thing here. Like, I'm telling you all this, like, there are a lot of people that know me, and they know a funnier, more fun version of me. And I want you guys to know that person. And I want that person to come on this podcast. But first, we need to do this. This is going to be a year-long thing. We need to make sure that November 3rd, 2020, that we get out and we vote, and we make sure we vote blue, because we are here to vote blue to save America. Do not let the primary process divide us. The only thing we could do is make sure that we have Trump removed. And we can take it in our hands by voting November 3rd, 2020. Dyze in your house. Exclusively on Least Coast Radio.